Sometimes we think of the Old Testament as a dry book, and we hurry to the New Testament thinking there's not much redemption here. Y'all, there's redemption on every single page. Hey, y'all, welcome back to the NIV Application Bible Podcast, or as I like to call it, the NIV Ab, because I think that makes it sound like an appetizer, and I'm kind of hungry. We are in the book of Numbers. Now, stay with me. Do not skip to the next one, because I know the book of Numbers sounds like it's a census, and it sounds boring unless you're a CPA. Y'all, the book of Numbers is so much more than a census. I want to, before we dive into this amazing story, one of my favorite stories in the whole Old Testament, by the way, in the book of Numbers in chapter 27, I want to read from the perspective. Every single one of the books in the NIV Application Bible has a perspective. And it is just such a cool way to kind of get your heart and mind wrapped around the socio-historical context of this part of redemptive history. One of my favorite scholars says, any text without a context is a pretext for a proof text. In other words, we don't get what's really happening in this miraculous redemptive history if you don't know the context. And I love that the perspectives at the beginning of all 66 books give us that context. So I'm just going to read a little bit about the context of Numbers. It's been said that after the wedding comes the marriage. So it was with Israel and God. After the wedding at Sinai, where God proclaimed the covenant vows, the 10 Commandments, remember those are not rules, those are parameters for our good. They're promissory, not punitive. With awesome splendor, Israel said, I do. And they built a house, a sanctuary together. There was a journey through the wilderness in real life. Whatever happened, they were in it together. I love that the NIV Application Bible sets up our covenant relationship with God as a marriage, but don't remember, our bridegroom is divine, the bride less so. So it's a bumpy marriage at points. And there's this story in Numbers chapter 27 that kind of shows you some of the bumpiness of that story. This, as I said, is one of my favorite stories in the Bible. And I didn't really know the takeaway of this story until a couple of years ago during the beginning of my doctoral program at Denver Seminary, and this story just took on such new life for me. It's called The Daughters of Zelophehad. It's in Numbers 27. The daughters of Zelophehad, son of Hepher, the son of Gilead, the son of Machir, the son of Manasseh, belonged to the clans of Manasseh, son of Joseph. The names of his daughters were, listen to this, Mela, Noah, Hoglah. Now, y'all, I know some of y'all like to name your kids after names in the Bible. Don't be naming your daughters Hoglah. I mean, that is rough. You're not going to find one of those little, bicycle license plates at Gatlinburg. If you name your girl Hoglah, she is definitely going to head for therapy. Milcah and Tirzah, they came forward and stood before Moses, Eleazar the priest, the leaders, and the whole assembly at the entrance of the tent of meeting. Remember, the tent of meeting is what they called the temple where they worshiped God before it became a brick and mortar building, because they're still transient. They're still in the wilderness. So they came to the tent of meeting, and these 5 girls said, our father died in the wilderness. He was not among Korah's followers who banded together against the Lord, but he died for his own sin and left no sons. Why should our father's name disappear from his clan because he had no son? Give us property among our father's relatives. This is really audacious for these 5 girls to come before Moses. And the high priest, Eleazar, was the high priest at the time. And they effectively say, our dad died, and because there's no boys, and because we're under the civil law of primogeniture, which means only the oldest boy gets the inheritance, we don't get a piece of the promised land that was promised to our dad. Audacious requests. I don't know if they were taking Pilates or hot yoga or what, but these girls are energetic. You would think Moses would have said, these girls are inappropriate. They get a timeout. Instead, Verse 5 says, so Moses brought their case before the Lord, and the Lord said to them, so that's the Lord, this isn't an emissary, so it's God's voice. Have you ever wondered what God's voice sounds like? I always imagine his voice is deep, like the guy on the Allstate commercial. This is God's voice. What Zelophehad's daughters are saying is right. That's verse 7, Numbers 27. You must certainly give them property as an inheritance among their father's relatives and give their father's inheritance to them. Say to the Israelites, if a man dies and leaves no son, give his inheritance to his daughter. If he has no daughter, give his inheritance to his brothers. If he has no brothers, give his inheritance to his father's brothers. If his father had no brothers, give his inheritance to the nearest relative in his clan, that he may possess it. This is to have the force of law for the Israelites, as the Lord commanded Moses. God changes inheritance law right here in Numbers 27. And you may say, what does that have to do with me? It has so much to do with us. This is all about dignity. During this period of ancient history, women had very little dignity. Most women had the worth of effectively a milk cow. These daughters are saying it's not fair. Culture didn't care that it wasn't fair. They didn't care that women were subjugated. God cares. They come before the Lord and they say, we don't have a brother and we think we should have some inheritance of the promised land that you promised our father. And God says, you're right. Y'all, this is 3,500 years before you see laws change regarding gender in society. And yet here's our Creator Redeemer saying, I love my daughters as much as I love my sons. Sometimes we think of the Old Testament as a dry book, and we hurry to the New Testament thinking there's not much redemption here. Y'all, there's redemption on every single page. I love this book. I love the NIV Application Bible because it really highlights redemption. This is not a rule book. This is not a textbook. This is not a collection of divine morality tales. At its core, this is a love story. At its core, the common denominator is God redeeming our inherent dignity on page after page after page after page. Lean into this love story. It has the power to change your life.